Debuting in Medarod 7 as the latest in the TOT Tortoise series, it is TOT04 Chrome Tortoise, with a kit of Guard Boost, Double Laser, Tank Legs, and the leg ability of Fortress, which grants a passive damage reduction when guarding and reducing damage from incoming attacks. Now, as a model that's available in the permanent banner at pretty much any given time in any banner you pull from, Chrome Tortoise is one of those models that you've probably seen at least a dozen times or so already, especially given the fact that he is a base 2-star model, which makes him even more common and, depending on your gacha luck, all the more frustrating to see when he graces your gacha pulls. But all the same, despite his relatively frustrating common likelihood of pulling, he is actually still a very hard-hitting member of the Tortoise family that takes a lot of the elements from his previous predecessors and kind of takes the best elements of everything all around. Guard Boost is a support-based skill on his head that, once activated, will boost the resist stats of his legs and that of his allies' legs by about 50%. Which means that when reducing damage, they will be taking a pretty considerably less amount of incoming damage and loss of HP when they compared to how they would before. Now, when you pair this up with Tank Legs, this already tanky Tortoise type is going to be even more of a pain to take down, and that's even before any other passive stacks come in to reduce it. Laser on both arms are optic attribute skills, which means they will get a times 1.5 damage bonus at 30% charge, and a times 2 damage bonus at 100% charge. Now, compared to between Laser Beam and Hyper Beam, granted, Hyper Beam is absolutely going to be the main one to go after, but if you're looking for something that may not be as powerful but is certainly safer to use, you really don't have to look much farther than Laser, as even if the damage multipliers are a little lower, the balance that you can get back from doing it and the lack of cooldown penalties make it much more of a much safer part you can use overall. Tank Legs means that he will have very basic coverage across all terrains at B rank across the board, of course minus S rank on Cyber, and with that means he will not be seeing any advantage or disadvantage on any terrain you put him on. And depending on how you see it, that can be seen as a blessing in disguise or even possibly a curse, depending on how you choose to go about it. His HP pool, as expected of a tank type, is actually pretty high up there too, with a very nice healthy set, with a head HP of about 3550, arms about 3400 each, and his legs at 4250. Definitely a very healthy and tanky HP pool, as you would expect of a Tortoise type, or even just without that, just of a tank type in general. On the topic of his leg stats, as you expect of Tank Legs, he is incapable of evading with a flat nothing in that stat, and a mobility of 511 is certainly not the highest when it comes to Tank Legs, but he's definitely one of the better ones, if I'm completely honest. So he's definitely one of those legs where you may not think too much of it at first glance, especially since he will be slightly more expensive to raise because he is a 2-star set. His stat payoff will definitely pay itself back in hand over foot with that. On that topic as well, a melee resist of 1087, almost 1100 there, and a shoot resist of almost 1900 makes this already tanky Tortoise type even better when it comes to the base reduction skills. And that's also not factoring in any damage reductions going toward him, either from terrain bonuses, from Medarod bonuses, or especially in Chrome Tortoise's case, from Guard Boost, which will buff these about 50% more, making him even more of a pain to take down. All this being said, as a pure set score, I still do sadly have to rate Chrome Tortoise a pretty flat 4.5 out of 10. But, given in the most ideal of scenarios, if he has everything going for him, I could honestly bump him up to a 5.5 or maybe even a 6 in some cases, but that's also depending on if the situation and the battle is going in his favor. While he most certainly has damage reduction as a major emphasis when it comes to his kit as a whole, between Guard Boost, stackable tank legs with their passive bonus, and even just the high resist stats that he already comes packing with as well, one of the really big weaknesses of Chrome Tortoise is that laser on both arms do require Metaforce Charge to unlock their damage potential. So you pretty much have to expect right from square one that the first couple shots are not going to be nearly as powerful as they could be. So it may behoove you to maybe spend a turn or two to charge Metaforce first, but that does also kind of put you at a disadvantage depending on how you choose to use it. But Overall, as mentioned, Chrome Tortoise does like to take the better elements of the tank-legged while still maintaining the damage potential of his family members of the Tortoise series. Between Guard Boost, passive tank legs, Fortress on top of that, as I didn't mention earlier, and as I mentioned his high resist stats, he's going to be one of those models that's going to be an absolute pain in the neck to take down, or he could be that dedicated damage sponge on your team, depending on what role he chooses to play. As mixed parts, I do very easily have to rate him much higher at a 6.5 out of 10. Laser on either arm you generally can't ever go wrong with using, even if it is a heavy part on both arms. That is honestly something you can compensate for very easily, especially if you're planning to make laser your dedicated form of damage, especially if you want to keep balance in the forefront of your mind. Now, compared to most other tank legs, as mentioned, he does arguably have one of the better sets to use, even if they are a little expensive to raise as a base 2-star model. But if you pair that off with the Fortress leg ability they come packing with, the good resist stats, and guard boost on top of that, you're going to be not quite immortal, but you would definitely be nigh impregnable for a pretty good amount of time, unless the enemy come packing with, say, effects clear and forcibly removes that.